All right, hello once again. We're going to continue our conversation about creative copywriting. This is part 2 of this discussion. And again, our conversations here are based on Advertising Age, the textbook Advertising Age, the Principles of Advertising and Marketing Communication at Work, Thorson and Duffy, Cengage Publishing. Creativity in 140 characters here. Obviously, we are talking about Twitter and social media. Now, Twitter no longer limits tweets to 140 characters, as you probably know. But tweets must still be brief, and in general, social media communications must be brief and to the point. So how can your brand gain from or be threatened by social networks? And we have talked in the past about how, well, that perhaps actually, I guess, is in another class, but we have talked about, and it does happen, that companies can be embarrassed by things that appear in social media and then have to respond to that. I'm thinking now in terms more of public relations than advertising. But social media can work against you as well as work for you. Twitter, Facebook, product placement in games. Product placement in games. Amazing. And many apps offer new opportunities and creative challenges. So no surprise, social media is very much part of the advertising playbook that people in the advertising industry make use of today. The use of Facebook by the men's personal care brand Axe, as a matter of fact, is referred to in the textbook. Let's have a look at their Facebook page. And they have a variety of things on that Facebook page. They have videos and contests and a lot of things that are appealing to the clientele of Axe, which is for the most part young men. You see there 3.7 million people have liked this Facebook page. So that's a tremendous advantage for the Axe company, which makes grooming products for young men. So imagine 3.7 million young men, mostly, receiving information on Axe via this Facebook page, but also I'm sure they're involved in other social media as well. So they're making very good use of social media that way. What's creative? Innovation and great ideas are at the heart of advertising and promotion. We've talked about the big idea. We've talked about connecting facts with insight. So it's not just a matter of having the facts. It's then what do you do with those facts? It's coming up with ways of making those facts come alive and presenting a message to an audience based on the facts, based on research, that will be effective in winning over that audience. You've seen this before. This goes back to the early part of the course. We were talking about the history of advertising. This is a very, very early example of using sex appeal in advertising, which is, of course, a huge part of advertising today. The skin you love to touch. An ad for Woodbury's facial soap, and written by Helen Lansdowne, one of the female pioneers of advertising. All the way back in 1911. But that was a big idea. That's an example of a big idea. And we might not imagine today how revolutionary that might have been at the time. I don't know if I've showed you this before or not. Apple's 1984 Super Bowl ad, I may have. If I have, it's worth looking at again. This is considered by a lot of people the greatest television ad of all time. This is the ad that introduced the Macintosh computer to the world. And nobody had heard of the Macintosh, or Apple for that matter, before this. And this was an ad that appeared in the, ironically and no coincidence, not coincidentally, the 1984 Super Bowl for the Macintosh computer.
Today we celebrate the first glorious anniversary of the information purification directives. We have created for the first time in all history a garden of pure ideas. What are we on earth? We are one people, with one will, one resolve, one cause. Our enemies shall talk themselves to death, and we will bury them with their own confusion. We shall prevail.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
The George Orwell novel 1984 was about mind control and people thinking all alike and being basically controlled by the government and so forth. So the big idea of that ad is that a product is coming that is going to break down conformity, that is going to open people's minds and open the world up to people. And this really turned out to be true. This is one case where the hype, the product lived up to the hype. And that ad never shows you the computer, never says anything about a computer other than, I think, at the very end it says Apple Computer. That's the only indication you have of what this thing is that they are selling. What they are selling is the big idea that a product is coming called Macintosh that is going to break down barriers and it's going to open people's minds. And I think the Macintosh and Apple and the entire computing and internet industry lived up to that promise. But that, again, considered by many the greatest television ad of all time. We've also discussed Legs and Avis. Legs appearing, these are and I believe this product still exists in that form, pantyhose in a package that is in the shape of an egg. So Legs. And then Avis, of course, the famous We're Number 2 and We Try Harder campaign. So a bit here on copywriting. I'm going to jump into the middle of this and just show you part of it. This is a young woman, very bright young woman, speaking about ways of writing great advertising copy. She has 5 tips, and I certainly encourage you to watch the whole thing. I'm just going to pick it up with the first one, and we might not get much past the first one here.
Great ads will make your prospects go, wait, what? Let's dive in. Secret number 1, curiosity. Great ads intrigue customers and pique their curiosity. Think about it. It doesn't matter how great your sales offer is, in order to get a customer to convert, you first need to have their attention. Most advertisers fail at this miserably, which is why most ads are nothing more than white noise, clogging up your social feeds, mobile apps, or Spotify playlists. The biggest mistake I see writers making in their ad writing is including too much information. My favorite ad writer of all time, Roy H. Williams, made this point perfectly when he said, "Bad ads leave no gaps and have no anomalies." He describes anomalies as unexpected intrusions into often repeated ideas. So in other words, bad ads will fail to make your customers go, wait, what? When you can create an open loop or a gap within your ad, your prospect will naturally be driven to close that gap. And stories are the best way to do this. People will remember your story long after they've forgotten your sales pitch. Trust me. So yes, while your final point of sales conversion should include all the relevant information needed for a buyer to make that final decision, your first touch point or your ad should absolutely not. When everything about your offer is stated clearly in an ad, no questions linger in the mind of your customer. Therefore, it's not what you include that makes for a great ad, it's what you strategically leave out. The carefully crafted gaps and anomalies.
So intriguing what she's talking about, and she's talking about ways to draw people in and get them interested in what you're saying. And sometimes that involves not telling them everything that they would expect to hear. So they wonder, what are they talking about here? And that seems strange, and I need to learn more about that because I don't quite understand it, but I'm interested. So I do urge you to go ahead and watch the rest of that video. And then here's a very good video on what it's like to be an advertising writer.
hang out for a living and I write stuff. Those are two things that I love doing: hanging out and screwing around with people and writing. And I combine that into a career that actually pays me. I'm Mark McKenzie. I'm the Associate Creative Director here at Brokai Advertising. So I'm a copywriter by trade, which means I write, concept, and produce ads. That's television ads, radio, could be outdoor, print, stuff online. Anywhere you see advertising, odds are I've probably done some of that work. This is kind of what we call the green table area. You can see why. There's green tables. So people have meetings here. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 meetings going on here at once at a bunch of the different tables. Or you can come down here and work in concept, which is usually one writer and one art director. Sometimes we gang up, have more than one writer, more than one art director if it's something that needs to be done quickly. For me, I love concepting. I love sitting with people and creating things. The entire process of not just coming up with the ideas, but then making that idea a reality. Once you think up a TV spot, it's thinking through the copy. Like, you have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb many, many times. Present it to multiple people and make sure that they like it too, which can also be fun and a challenge.
So we'll stop that there. It goes on a bit longer for about 2.5 minutes. So again, I hope that you'll watch the rest of that, but gives you a very good idea of what it's like on a day-to-day basis to be an advertising writer, and how they work together and how they brainstorm and come up with the terrific ideas that they do. So on advertising and promotional creativity, this was a nice part of the chapter in your textbook, what great copywriters say about creativity. And so these are just kind of random comments, but each one is valuable. To some extent, they may conflict with one another, at least in a couple of occasions here. Burt Manning says, copy should sell by an understanding of the people it seeks to reach. So again, we have talked about this already, understanding the people that you are trying to communicate with. Mary Moore says, great advertising is rarely comfortable. It's probably risky. So you have to be willing to take some chances. And then knowing, again, is this too far over the line, or is this edgy and therefore effective? Sometimes that's hard to know. Jim Johnston, good creative people don't mind rules. You can't write a sonnet unless you know the rules. Now, once you know the rules, sometimes you can break the rules, but it is helpful to know the rules first. So the rules help you stay on the road, on the path, and not get too far off into the weeds. Gene Federico, elegant advertising is distinguished by simplicity, and that simplicity makes it effective. So think about the Avis ad, we try harder. The Walmart ad, save money, live better. Very simple. Nothing complicated about those, but a very effective message in each case. Cheryl Berman, human insight is the most powerful tool you have in affecting how consumers behave and how they view your brand. So again, insight is taking the facts and then coming up with an idea based on those facts. So the facts are one thing, but then what do you draw from those facts? How do you make use of those facts? Steve Kopka, cleverness alone doesn't sell. You have to say the right thing and you have to say it brilliantly, but being clever in and of itself doesn't sell the product, and the ultimate goal is to sell the product or sell the idea, at least. Great advertising is built on deep understandings of people's needs and motivations. That's a message that we have been hearing throughout. It's based on unconventional thinking, artistic leaps. This is getting back to taking chances at times, and the discipline to keep the client's goals firmly in mind. So it's not only about winning awards and being creative, unless the creativity achieves the basic purpose of the ad. We'll close out with this comment from Don Draper, fictional character in the series Mad Men. Don Draper on advertising.
Advertising is based on one thing: happiness. And you know what happiness is? Happiness is the smell of a new car. It's freedom from fear. It's a billboard on the side of the road that screams with reassurance that whatever you're doing, it's okay. You are okay.
All right, so we will leave it at that, and we'll continue our discussion about advertising next time. And thanks for your attention, and we'll be talking again soon.